Okay, let's take a look now at section 1 of the verbal reasoning section of what's called the ISEE, the Independent Schools Entrance Exam. You will notice that you have 35 questions and 17 and a half minutes in which to answer them. Parents, this requires speed and accuracy. It is not just that your children have to know information, but they have to know it almost unconsciously. This section requires a great deal of vocabulary, and vocabulary cannot be crammed. This is why it is essential that from the earliest years, your children have a systematic, progressive, developmental vocabulary program. Reading is important, extremely important, but vocabulary simply cannot be learned only from reading. Your children should have a daily way of learning 5 or 6 words every day, and using, in my belief, the best way to do that is to use Latin and Greek word parts, specifically Latin word parts such as prefixes and suffixes that really most of our language consists of. Well, let's take a look now at synonyms. Each question in part 1 consists of a word in capital letters followed by 4 answer choices. And you're going to select the one word that is most nearly the same in meaning as the word in capital letters. Okay? So let's take a look at disperse. And disperse, as you can see here, means to scatter. Now, the second type of question you'll get is what's called a sentence completion, where the students will have to complete a sentence with the choices below. Never blank. The dishes Martha prepared were always highly seasoned. So here, the student will have to recognize that this part of the sentence is in contrast with this part and choose a word that therefore is in contrast with highly seasoned. And the answer, of course, will be bland, but that's presuming you know what bland means. You see, presuming that you know what durable means, and I find our students get into all kinds of trouble here because they simply don't know what these words mean. The next example, when the young politician took office, she was blank, but she felt blank by the time her first term ended. Once again, you have the coordinating conjunction but, which sets up the contrast, okay? And so we know that this portion of the sentence, this clause here, is going to be in contrast, in a relationship of contrast with this part of the sentence, okay? So let's take a look at it. She was what? But she felt blank by the end of her first term. So perhaps we can say we have to look for a set of words here that contrast each other, okay? And we'll see that disappointed and confused are not really contrasts. Energetic and excited are not contrasts. Indifferent and idealistic are not contrast, at least not to fit in this sentence here. They are, but not for this particular sentence, rather. And of course, D, inexperienced and knowledgeable, that's a major contrast. So you fill in the blanks. When the young politician took office, she was inexperienced, but she felt knowledgeable by the time her first term ended. So now we look at part 1, synonyms, and again I want to impress upon you the importance of vocabulary study for your children. Take a look at these words. Well, initial might be easy, that's the first one, and of course it means first. Mannequin they are probably familiar with, okay? And so well, what does that mean? But notice that there's a word here that may not exactly fit the way they think about mannequin, okay? Being something like a model. Agenda, once again here, okay, would be your program. Adversary, obviously opponent. Now we get a little bit more difficult here. Personify. Personify, and some students may think of personification, okay, which is good, but again, to personify something means to represent it. He personified bravery. He was the model of bravery, the epitome of bravery. Equity. Another good word, but equity again here means fairness. And what's interesting is if you knew word parts, you could look at EQUI, which means equal, or EQU. You have that same root, that same word part in the word equal. And so equity means fairness. Anthology, study here. See, the anthology here would mean collection. Opaque, would mean clouded, you see, but look at the level of words here, palpable. These are not words that students use throughout the day. And even the choices in number 9 require a good deal of vocabulary knowledge. Docile, political, sluggish, tangible. These are difficult terms. And so what we find is a lot of our students are guessing because they just don't know the vocabulary. Fathom, very important, okay? How do you, I fathom, I can't fathom your argument. I can't fathom what you're saying. And of course, the synonym here is comprehend. Okay, but again, difficult, diminish, perpetuate, admonish, epitome, transitory, incite, depict, and the choices themselves present difficulty for the students. Like, for example, take a look at 15. In trying to determine what the word epitome means, the student also has to understand what embodiment means, also has to understand what equilibrium means, resilience, okay? Viewpoint, they say, oh, I think I know that, but what about the first 3 choices? Embodiment, equilibrium, resilience. And of course, the answer here is embodiment. If you're the epitome of something, you embody it. But boy, I tell you, that's tough. Equilibrium, being balanced, resilience, being tough and always being able to come back. But again, difficult. Take a look at transitory. Now, if the student knew that trans, this prefix here, trans, T-R-A-N-S, meant across or moving from one situation to another, you might get the sense that transitory is that which is always moving and not stable here. And so the answer, they might be able to figure out, hey, look, it's fleeting, okay? So again, difficult vocabulary needing to be mastered. And the same thing applies when you get into the sentence completion part, but I think my point is already well taken, that vocabulary. Take a look at number 23 here. The article on gene splicing was so blank that only a handful of the students were able to understand it. And then you have these terms such as contrite, esoteric, functional, genuine. Look, you know that if you don't know vocabulary here, you can guess all you want to, but of course the answer is esoteric, that which is not simple, so complex it is hard to understand. And again, and all this has got to be done. Let's go back. All of this has got to be done. The synonyms, the sentence completions. How long? 17 and a half minutes for 35 questions. Are you kidding me? You've got to know your stuff, as Grandma would say. You got to know your stuff. You have to understand words. And then in your sentence completions, you have to understand how words are organized to create meaning. You have to look at the relationships between the different clauses or different sections of the sentence. This is not easy, and certainly not something that can be done in 17 minutes unless you know your words and you're simply now thinking about what those words mean in the context of the sentence. But you can't come here to guess, and you can't cram this. Don't even try it. Don't go spend your money somewhere in some type of 6-week program to cram vocabulary. Begin today. Use word parts to become word smart.